day, I'm Isa Tan, editor of Asian Pork Magazine. I'm happy to welcome you to another podcast by Asian Agribiz. In this interview, our regional correspondent Hatu talks to John Carr, a prominent global swine consultant, about the possibility of repopulating the swine herd using high-rise buildings as a solution to the contracting farmland and pork supplies.
Hello, Dr. Carr. Thank you for accepting to talk in this podcast.
Hi, it's good afternoon.
ISF-infected countries in Asia are trying to repopulate their pig herds. However, one of the problems the pig industry is facing is that there is a limited availability of clear land that doesn't bear the risk of pathogen that cause reinfection. We are seeing more Skyrise building for pigs in China, especially after ASF. So, Dr. Carr, do you think this is one of the solutions for the safe repopulation of pig herds in ASF-infected areas?
I think this is a reasonable way of farming throughout the world, not just African swine fever infected areas. I think multi-story pig farming could be the next revolutionary leap in pig production. In terms of African swine fever, one of the big advantages of a multi-story building is it actually takes the pigs off the ground. The number one way in which pigs get African swine fever is contact with wild pigs from outside the farm. Now, I appreciate there's not necessarily many wild pigs in China, but there are in the rest of Asia. But also having the building on a multi-story means that you have limited access to the building. And so therefore the pathogen control should be much easier.
So where should be a suitable location for a pig apartment building that can suit both economical benefit and biosecurity purposes?
Well, this is where it is very interesting. The ones that I'm involved with at the moment tend to be in more mountainous areas. I think the simpler question might be, where is it becoming unsuitable? I think it's unsuitable to put a pig farm on farmland. Now, that may seem a little insane to our listeners. Pigs don't need to be on a farm. Pigs live in a building, just the same as people. Pigs and poultry both live in buildings. I do have farms outside, particularly in like the United Kingdom, where we have nearly 40% of the industry. But in the vast majority of the world, pigs are farmed inside a building, in an environmentally controlled building. Therefore, you don't need to put a pig farm on a farm, as in on farmed land. I think with the world's population moving to 10 billion or more, and this is by 2050, the projections we have, we're going to need 30 to 40% more pork, 30 to 40% more pork than we produce today. And with the African swine fever outbreak, we're actually producing less. So we've got some serious problems in terms of feeding people. I believe that farmland needs to be reserved for farming, as in farming cereals and crops for people, and also providing more room for wildlife. There is no need to put pig farms, in areas where wildlife is essential. But majority of my farms, multi-story today, are built in more mountainous regions, areas where it is actually difficult to farm a conventional pig farm. If you ask me where would John place his multi-story pig farm, well, this probably would astonish your readers or your listeners. I'd actually place it in the middle of a city. I think we need to rethink our entire way forward of farming. And I believe that tomorrow's pig farms and tomorrow's poultry farms can be situated right in the middle of our cities.
Well, that is a very interesting new image of a pig farm, a pig building in the city. So what should be included in the building? Should it be just porker farm, or should it contain other components such as sow area, nursing house, or even a slaughterhouse in this building?
For me, we should have what was called vertical integration. The concept of vertical integration is more on paper, but I believe we can actually produce it in real time, in real space. Unbelievably, the designs that I have discussed, albeit with people who think sometimes you're a little crazy, but my farm would be vertically integrated. On the top floor, we'll say top floor, there would be the pregnant sows, possibly with the breeding sows and the pregnant sows. Then on the next floor down, I would have my farrowing. And the reason for the farrowing to be below the gestation is that the sows would move down and then the sows would move back up. Then on the next floor down would be the nursery. And then there'd be floors of finishing. So the pigs are effectively moving down through the system. And you could have nursery finishing even combined, which is a fairly easy way of doing farming, particularly in the United States, and have many farms in the Philippines where we do wean to finish. And then ultimately, as you go through the wean to finish area, then yes, I would ultimately have a slaughterhouse. And then below the slaughterhouse, I'd even have a supermarket and restaurants. And then below that, there could be then shops for people.
Wow. So we will have all in one. I mean, a whole vertical pig production chain in one place, right?
The concept that I would consider would be all in one.
You said it's a crazy idea. Do you think it's feasible, though?
I think it's feasible. I mean, the first farm that I worked on was probably 15 years ago in Korea, which was a multi-story building. And I'll be honest, at the time, I thought, this is crazy. And then over the years, working with the pig industry, and I come from, a relatively small family farm in East Yorkshire, laid out in the middle of effectively a cornfield on what was a piece of airfield. And that's the only reason why the pig farm was there, was the foundations were already there because of the airport. It's a waste of space that could be used for growing corn. The pigs don't need the farm, need the very expensive, very beautiful soiled area. What the pigs need is an environmentally controlled building, just like ourselves.
Given that the model is developed to solve the increasing demand for meat and the limited land issues in cities, can we take a look at a city as an example, say Ho Chi Minh City, with a population of 10 million people, and the pork consumption per capita is about 29 kilograms per person per year? How many buildings like this do you think is needed to cater the city?
10. I need 10 multi-story pig farms. Now, again, a lot of your listeners will be like, what? So let's go through the calculation. We have 10 million people and they eat 29 kilos of pork. That means we have 290 million kilos of pork. We'll keep the calculation simple. So we're trying to make everything all end up in zeros. So let's assume that each pig provides 100 kilos of pork. I appreciate it could be 90, could be a little bit less. But if we go to an American style pig, 120 kilos live weight, then dead weight would be about 100 kilos. So if we take our 290 million kilos and divide that by 100, we would then come to 2.9 million I need in order to feed 10 million people. And that's about right. For each pig feeds about 3 people. So if we then assume, again, that we're going to improve our production and we're going to 29 pigs per sow per year, so when I've got 2.9 million pigs divided by 100,000 sows. So I need 100,000 sows to feed 10 million people. Now, my city farms, my multi-story farms, are going to have 450 sows a week being farrowed. There are 10,000 sow units, clearly bigger than farms that we're used to in Vietnam. But we're looking forward into the future. So with the need for 100,000 sows and 10,000 sow units, I need 10. So I need 10 multi-story farms in order to feed a city of the size of Ho Chi Minh. If we take the alternative and we go to a 300 sow unit, 300 sow unit is still quite a good farm in Vietnam. It's a good farm throughout the world. But to my mind, they are the farms of yesterday. We need ultimately to be bigger. If we take our 300 sow farm and we make the farm as productive as my 10,000 sow farm, so it's still doing 29 pigs per sow per year, I need 330, 340 farms. So when we take risk, African swine fever, possibly PRRS, mycoplasma, APP, I've got 340 risks versus my 10. I've got 340 perimeters, which I have to defend versus my 10. If we take a more normal number of, say, 24 pigs per sow per year and maybe 90 kilos, I'm looking at nearly 500 farms. So we've got 500 farms scattered around Ho Chi Minh, maybe scattered around the whole of Vietnam, versus my 10. And that's why I think the multi-story farming will succeed. Much easier for me to find 10 facilities than it is to try and find 500 farms and get the building permission and everything else. You could, of course, build 10,000 sow units as farms, but they're going to be spread over a lot of hectares versus the space required by my farm, which would be a tenth or less of the land usage that a normal farm will use.
Very interesting. So, how about the biosecurity issue? Is the biosecurity system in the pig apartment building more efficient than conventional farms?
One of the problems with conventional farms is biosecurity. Biosecurity is not cheap. For my biosecurity, in order to protect against African swine fever, I need 2 perimeter fences. This is on a normal flat farm. We could call it a 2-dimensional farm. I need 2 perimeter fences. I need dedicated trucks which never leave the farm in order to feed the food, move the food to the buildings. I need dedicated trucks to move the pigs from the buildings to the outer perimeter of the farm. Biosecurity is not cheap. And unfortunately, when you've only got 100 sows, you can't afford it. You can't afford it at 200 sows. You can hardly afford it at 3. The farms that can afford to protect themselves against African swine fever are going to be 1,000 to 2,000 sow units or more, I'm afraid.
Well, Dr. Carr, from what you've shared, I'm convinced and I can see the benefit of mega farms in terms of biosecurity and meat supply. But is it easier to operate than the on the ground farm?
The simple answer would be yes. I think maybe a better question is, would the pigs' welfare and well-being be enhanced with the multi-story pig farm? And I honestly believe, as a veterinarian, it will be, because I can very carefully control the environment and provide for the pigs all that we know that they need, which is much more difficult on a traditional farm, again, because of money and money constraints. Will it be easier to farm? Yes, because we would design it through the internet. It would be a building that it would effectively run itself. The pigs, in truth, would run the building, not people. These buildings I would not expect to have high staffing rates. So, for example, a 300 sow unit in Vietnam may employ 20 people. My 10,000 sow unit will employ 40 people. And this, again, is quite shocking to a lot of people in Asia, how few people I need to run a farm.
What about the cost then? I know a Chinese company who wants to promote their equipment and designing services for a pig apartment building in Vietnam. They told me that the cost for the construction of a pig apartment building is 30 to 40% higher than conventional farms with the same components. So, with this gap, do you think it's worth investing?
The question is the future of the planet. Can can we how are we going to feed 10 billion people with 10 billion people eating probably 35 kilos of pork per year? I mean, pork is the number one meat protein source on this planet. Chicken is second. But the concept of chicken and pigs, I mean, I'm really considering them both in this sort of idea. To have 10 billion people healthy, 10 billion people eating healthy food, kids growing well, kids having good protein sources to enable their brains to grow and build the cities of tomorrow. And on a planet where we need to have room for rhinoceroses and tigers and elephants and little beetles and honeybees. We've got to grow up as a species. We need food. We're going to have a lot of people. There is a cost up front, and I hear it. But I think that as we get these buildings designed, I think the ongoing costs will come down in price. And it comes down to the value of farms or value of land. Would you rather put a high-rise pig farm in the middle of Ho Chi Minh, or do I take out a forest in Da Nang?
Do you think this would be the standard farming model in the future?
There's always room for lots of options. I am sure that in Austria, for example, we will still have relatively small farms producing excellent niche market pork products to go with their niche market wines and cheeses. Those farms will still exist and still be able to make money. And I still enjoy working on those farms. The problem I have is I got to feed people. I got to feed populations of people. I've got to feed working class people where mum and dad work very, very hard in order to make sure that their kids have a good education. And they are not necessarily rich. And so we've got to keep pork cheap and wholesome and also look after the pigs. And I believe that the multi-story pig farming is one of the options of which we can try to do that and consider sustainability and the carbon footprint of the pig industry. Another reason why I believe multi-story pig farming is the way forward is that when you place the farm in the middle of a city, you already have the infrastructure. There's two things that people ask me straight off is that, well, what are you going to do with the slurry? What are you going to do with the feces? What are you going to do with the waste? Well, Ho Chi Minh already has a highly efficient modern waste disposal system for 10 million people. Adding a few sows to that system is not going to overstretch the system. So you already have the infrastructure for waste disposal. You obviously have water supplies coming in. The advantage of Ho Chi Minh is that it has a road system. So I already have the transport system to bring food and, if necessary, pork away from my farm. If I'm building this farm in the middle of a mountain in Da Nang, I got to build all that infrastructure up to the farm. And then what am I going to do with the waste products? What am I going to do with the roads that I have to build in order to get to my farm? And I think these other aspects need to be considered as well. Is it the blueprint for tomorrow? I think it needs to be seriously considered. Where do we place our farms? Do we place our farms on highly productive farmland? Do we place our meat production areas where animals live in an environmentally controlled building anyway? Why don't we just place them with us? A city is a good place to raise kids, or is it not? That's another philosophical question. But I think cities are a good place to raise pigs. and chickens.
Wonderful, Dr. Carr. Thank you very much for your sharings. I believe this is very valuable to our readers too. Thank you.
Excellent. No, it's a philosophical question at the moment, but I think it will be reality tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is challenging to meet the higher demand for pork with limited farmland. But as you've just heard, the high rise buildings will help solve this problem. Moreover, it also helps improve biosecurity and efficiency at swine operations. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Visit www.asian-agribiz.com for a wealth of information about Asia's animal protein industry and to listen to our other podcasts.